And those are some of our least popular videos. Like, it doesn't get any traction because not that many people are interested in that, even though these are the greatest human rights violations of our time. We talk about these things, and not even Muslims are talking about it. I mean, some to the credit, I do see some Muslims talking about it, but on a per capita basis, we as atheists are talking about it more than the Muslim community is, right? The Muslim community is more interested in talking about what happens to Palestinians. And also the far leftists are only interested in Muslims being oppressed when it's done by a white supremacist. Because to me, that suggests that it's not the Muslims that they're interested in. It's not protecting Muslims that they're interested in. It's the fact that the people that accuse us of being white supremacists, the fact that they didn't care about China, the fact that they didn't make a single mention of the crimes committed against Muslims in Yemen, but all of a sudden they are all yelling and calling us white supremacists and blaming us for the attack in New Zealand. Once we find out that the criminal here was a white supremacist, the fact that shows to me that this has nothing to do with them being guardians of minorities. To me, this is a strong indication that this is basically them, making a political move here, and this is them becoming more relevant because it was more about being becoming more relevant. These are people that want white supremacy to be bigger than it actually is, because the greater white supremacy is, the more relevant they are.
Right. So do you think that initially, I always worry about these types of knee-jerk reactions when it comes to having greater conversations, because I feel as though conversations are incredibly underrated and are one of the most important things that we can have, not just be with people that we agree with, but especially with people that we don't. So when something like this happens and the knee-jerk reaction is somebody is criticizing Islam as a faith, we're afraid that that's bad optics for us. Do you feel as though that sends a message that the perception is that criticism of Islam or any faith can be conflated in some way with overall racism or hate propagating, because people can't seem to compartmentalize the differentiation? Or do you think that it's just that they're afraid that it might have an overlap? What do you think it is?
Well, I think that not criticizing Islam because these people might get hurt is actually the bigotry. I mean, I think Majid Nawaz coined the term bigotry of lower expectations, because basically, if you criticize bad ideas but hold it back when it comes to Muslim, what does that say about your views on Muslims? That they can't take feedback on their ideas, that they can't take just us disagreeing with what their religion? Like, how low must you think of an entire group of people that you think, all bad ideas are up for disagreeing?
Or do you think it might be that
ridiculing and mocking? You can make cartoons about other bad ideas, but this is just too much. These people, you're treating them like children basically. But go on, sorry.
I was just going to say, well, I'm not sure that that's necessarily what the motivations are. I mean, this is just speculation, but I think a lot of the motivations may be, and I don't think that they're sound, that if they allow somebody to come in and criticize Muslims, that's going to be conflated with hating Muslims or perceived as hating Muslims, even though it isn't. It's just fair criticism of something that deserves to be criticized. And because something horrible has just happened to Muslims, they fear that if they platform somebody who's critical, that criticism is going to be seen as adding to existing hate, which is an issue because they can't compartmentalize. Did I articulate that a little bit better?
Right. Yeah, but you did. But it's I mean, you're trying to. That's not your view.
No,
you're mentioning.
No. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
spitballing against what the motivations might be when these types of things happen. Because if we can't understand what the motivations that people have for doing these things are, then because if we don't understand what their motivations are, then we can't effectively counter them when these types of things happen. We need strategies, and we need to know what's going on in order for strategies to be effective.
So what you describe is the best that we could hope from them, even though it's completely wrong, because it's actually the other way around, right? But given my experience with a situation like, Christchurch, so the best that you could hope from this group of people is that they actually think that they're protecting minorities, but they have the wrong view of it. And I will tell you why even that is wrong, even though that's the best, because the intentions are actually good in that situation, right?
Sure.
But my experience is that for most of these people, not on the left, by the way, I'm talking about the far left, okay? Because most of the left is saying, most of the right is also saying, we shouldn't talk about the entire left as if as if they're all the far left, and we shouldn't talk about the right as if they're all the far right, right? So, but my experience with people on the far left is that I genuinely question if the intentions are actually even protecting minorities. I think the intention might just be becoming more relevant, even if that makes it, even if the cost to that is to grow white supremacy and grow bigotry. It's fine, because that will make them more relevant, right? But as far as the people that you're steelmanning, like the best of them, that are actually thinking that they're protecting minorities, I do think they're wrong, even though they have good intentions, because it's actually the other way around. I mean, this was predicted by people like Sam Harris years ago, that if we're not having these conversations, the people that are going to have the monopoly over the truth are going to be the people that are going to try to use the fact that they are the only people that are mentioning the truth as a signal to the people that discover the truth that their hatred towards a certain group of people is justified, right? If you don't hear these things about certain ideas, and you're completely living in a bubble, and then one day you discover that, oh, maybe the truth was being hidden from you, and you go out and try to discover the people that aren't hiding the truth from you. And if those people that you discover that aren't hiding the truth, if they're only the white supremacists, then you have given them more legitimacy and more authority, because you think, well, these people have been right about Islam, something that other people have been hiding from me. So they probably are right about other things that they're saying, and maybe I should take them more seriously on everything else they're saying. This was it's just interesting, because this was predicted many years ago by Sam Harris, and when he predicted this, people accused him of actually saying that white supremacists are then right. He wasn't saying that. He was warning about you giving them the legitimacy that they so crave, right? The fact is
that if you silence everybody else, and they're the only ones who are allowed to criticize, and people who are really open to hearing those criticisms, that's their only avenue to take. And they're not going to hear it from somebody who is kind and empathetic and has best interest and wants to talk about what the next steps are and what a better way to combat it is. They're only going to hear it from people who are using it in order to pivot towards, and thus you should hate these people.
See, this is why I tell Muslims, right? I say you would want the people that hate Islam and talk shit against Islam. You want those people to be us, okay? Because when people are going out and looking for shit on Islam, you want the people that are shitting on Islam to be the people that will also defend your rights. Okay? You should introduce people that hate Islam to us, because we will challenge your ideas, but we will also defend you when other people are challenging your rights. I say to Muslims, it's better to be offended than to be discriminated against. All right? So tolerate us offending you, tolerate us shitting on your religion and on Muhammad and everything else that you hold sacred. Because when it comes to defending your speech, defending your right to practice your religion, even though it's a very shitty religion, we will be there with you and protecting you on those rights. You want us to be you want us to have the platform when it comes to shitting on Islam. You should take away the platform from the white supremacists and give it to us.
That's actually funny. That's
well said.
That's interesting. I actually hadn't looked at it that way, so that's something for me to mull over. So that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So,
Well said.
one of the it is. So I feel as though we've kind of litigated what happened there. You also did get to have a really good talk with the Atheist Society of Calgary. I've gone to many events there. Well, not many actually. I've only been to a couple events there when I travel to Calgary, and they're fantastic. They're an incredibly active society. So I appreciate you giving them the credit that they deserve for having you, and because I know that it's not something that they took lightly. But I know that for a fact. That as
Can I also give credit to? Can I also give credit to a group of people? I also want to mention that we have a lot of the people in the atheist community, when they want to talk about Islam, they seem to be waiting for permission from the far left to be able to finally talk about Islam. I say, given that these people's careers depends on us being actual bigots, I don't see that much hope in that, right? So I'm saying we don't even need to wait for, like, who are we trying to convince? These people, I have had very little success rate with them. I have had much better success rate with Muslims than with the far left, okay? And I have managed to convince, and I know a lot of Muslims won't agree with this, but I have managed to change the opinions of a lot of Muslims themselves. Even so, a lot of Muslims leave Islam. We know the ex-Muslim movement is growing, but there's a smaller win that we have achieved on a much bigger scale, is that a lot of Muslims that hate what we have to say about Islam have at least accepted that it's okay for us to do so. Okay.
Interesting.
This has worked very well. And this is the example I want to put this example out there, because this is the argument that I use to most Muslims that has worked the fastest, right? And so feel free to use this if you ever want to convince a Muslim that why hating on Islam is not a personal attack on Muslims. And you have to understand, this is the meme. Even though Islam is ridiculous, the meme of Islam is not ridiculous at all, and it's a very, very powerful meme, and it's very strategic the way it's structured, right? And that's why it has survived, and that's why it has spread so fast, right? So you don't underestimate it. And the strategy, the fact that when ideas can't survive logical analysis, the best way for the idea to survive is to make that idea makes it as part of someone's identity, so that the attack on the identity will become an attack on an entire group of people, right? So it doesn't matter if it makes sense or not. You don't criticize it, because then you're attacking an entire group of people. That's a very clever strategy. It's a very clever defense mechanism. And the challenge for us is, even before criticizing Islam, is try to separate the understanding that this is the idea from the identity, right? And the way to do that is to do a counterexample on atheism. So the example I give is this. I tell Muslims, like, imagine a Muslim that hates atheism. And usually, depending on the Muslim you're talking to, some of them might say like, well, I don't hate atheism. But if they try to change the conversation like that, say like, I'm not talking about you. I'm just talking about a Muslim that hates atheism. Okay, this is my example. But this person hates atheism, not because she hates atheists, but because she cares for atheists and she worries that they're going to go to hell. She genuinely is concerned for atheists, and she thinks she's worried for them, she loves them, and she's trying to save them. So she hates atheism not because she hates atheists. She hates atheism because of her love for atheists and because of her care for atheists, right? And that example shows how somebody could hate atheists, not hate atheism, not because she hates atheists, but because of her love for atheists. So you're giving an example of how it's possible to hate an idea without hating the people, right? And so if you can understand that, then can you understand that even if, let's say we're wrong, let's say we are critics of Islam and we hate Islam and we are wrong and you're right. You're right and we're wrong. Islam is fantastic. It's the best thing ever. And we're absolutely wrong about it. But at least try to understand that our intentions